Hi everyone, I'm here with Bonnie from S Factor. I'm Alex, I'm the founder and CEO of Index One. We worked with Bonnie on a new project which we're making a short video about. So, Bonnie, could you please give me a quick introduction to yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm the founder and the CEO of the social factor data company, the S Factor. By way of background, I am a socioeconomic quant, a forensic and human rights auditor. I've worked in more than 60 countries over the last 25 years, advising investors, governments, and corporates, mostly in the mining and oil and gas sectors, on social risk and performance. Our firm has now won dozens of awards globally for our achievements in both fintech, regtech, and social impact. We've been published widely, and I've spoken at many prestigious events, including the G20 Summit last year.
Great, very interesting, and thanks for that background. So your company S Factor, could you talk a bit about sort of the origin story and what you're doing?
So S Factor, the S in S Factor stands for the social factors, the criteria that is often overlooked in investment decisions. Our company's original intent was to fulfill the social data gap. This is an area of my expertise on social performance in ESG. So, which is to say the operational level or systems level social risk, focused on both employees and communities where firms do business, but also throughout their supply chains. When we brought the data to market, no one knew what to do with it. So we were way ahead of the market and we had too much information. It was a plethora, millions of data points per company per day. So we formulated some ratings to try and synthesize how firms could weigh in scores with other rating sources that just don't have the depth of social performance criteria or are lacking any real tangible social risk as a data gap filler. Then we were met with, what's the value of this exercise? Why do I need to incorporate? What's the value of social data? And there was a lot of deflection around that. And so we developed some quantitative strategies. This is where we partner with Index One and other quant firms to start associating the value of social performance and companies' financial performance. We had created the world's first social performance index in 2010. So this is really an evolution of that exercise. And we've now developed dozens of quantitative strategies with 10-year backtests and regressions and developed literally dozens of business use cases to try and demonstrate to clients how they could use our data. This is where we partnered with external quant firms and also Index One to demonstrate the correlative quantitative outcomes of using social risk data.
Great. Yeah, and I think what you're doing is very interesting, and ESG obviously is a hot topic, especially in the indexing and passive investment space. But the S has been largely overlooked or maybe not properly sort of developed. So it's really,
I think it's largely misunderstood. We don't know what we mean when we're talking about social risk. When you use the word social, we defer to DEI or we defer to headcounts or pay equity. We're not necessarily thinking about operational disruption and risk.
Around the index creation and what we've done here, could you talk a bit about your sort of motive behind putting this index series together? Why you think it's a logical next step for yourself and the company?
Yeah, definitely. So the data was too much. It's a very niche skill set and expertise, and at large does not exist within most investing firms. And so it's too much information, and unless they have large data centers and quantitative teams that understand the data and the process behind it, it just simply was too sophisticated, too complicated, too complex. Like it's all new information coming at you, like a fire hose of new information, and nobody knows how to weight this in or what it means. And so industry asked then asked of us, so after we provided the data, we provided the ratings, and still there was some complication, barriers to entry. And then, the feedback from industry was, can you just build the product? Right? Can you just give us something that we can use? I don't know what to do with all this data. So we partnered with Index One. So I'm very grateful to have met you guys to try and make some sense of the patterns of behavior in our ratings and our data and the signals that it was performing, to develop a series of indices. So we've developed indices segmented by best-in-class performance, long only, strategies to create the series, to create a product that would help clients kind of synthesize that plethora of data, and give and attach some value to it and a business case for that value.
Thanks. Yeah, and in terms of, I think we can get into a bit more detail on how the indices operate and what the sort of product looks like. And maybe if we take a sort of bottom-up approach, could you talk a bit about the underlying data set that you've built at S-Factor, and I can then talk a bit about the index construction and how we've kind of used that to put these indices together.
Definitely. So the most significant value add to S-Factor's data is that it's originated data. So when you talk about, the dozens of rating agencies that are out there providing scores, evaluating different topics across ESG in different ways, sourcing content in different ways, evaluating it in different ways, weighting it in different ways, we have a unique to us data set that is 1,200 social specific indices at the operational level that we're monitoring on a daily basis. But what's really cool about this, and in an industry first, is that S-Factor successfully developed a methodology to accurately compute and represent qualitative indicator data sets, which would typically be the social, as an indexed value. So that's essentially what we've been able to create. So we've been able to quantify social materiality across every single global framework with a 10-year history. So that is how profound this data set is. If we get into the methodology of the index, number of companies, what we've actually created together. So we have a total of 15 indexes now with an 8-year history in the data, in the performance. So we have developed a consistent, replicable process that is performance, which is really cool. So in one series, which we created with Index One, it's a top 100 US series across verticals within social. So there are that verticals meaning isolated health and safety, ethics, supply chain, labor. We've also created a top 100 global series with the same, so US centric and the global as well. But we also have a global best-in-class aggregate, which merges all of those verticals. And this strategy hosts roughly about 1,350 companies, a minimum scoring floor of 25 out of 100, a minimum topic coverage of 40% across 74 social themes. Those 74 social themes consist of 1,200 social specific indices that we are monitoring on a daily basis across millions of data sources and 49 languages. So these indices map the norms or the criteria norms across 45 internationally best practice frameworks. So we see a lot of merging of global frameworks now, ISSB, IFRS, SASB. We've been doing something similar since 2009 with operational frameworks. So we've now mapped in the investment frameworks as well, to normalize what is the required content for measuring performance of a company's social management system. So that's a lot. It is very sophisticated, but we are 10 years in, so we're now trying to synthesize the so what. How valuable can that data be to us? 2/3 of the world's public equities are still not disclosing on this information. So whilst we have those frameworks and a better sense of a normalized global universal application of social criteria, we're not yet disclosing. However, with regulations such as the CSR DDD in Europe and other human rights and supply chain mandated disclosures for public equities, for companies, we'll see the gap on information close. And of course, with AI, we now have access to other sources of content, sources of information, whereby we can model the probability of performance on externalities as well. So that's a lot of technical jargon, but it is really sophisticated. It is a special and unique skill set to do that. It's something I've been doing for 25 years. So this is really obvious to me. And we've now married that with technology and data and reg tech and fintech. And now we're marrying that with quantitative strategies and AI, which is really cool to see how big relevant information can be. So we go beyond, another advantage that we have is we go beyond survey data and sustainability reports supplied by companies. We go external to companies in sources of information such as government filings, fines, penalties, permit revocations. Tells us a lot about a company's behavior across the same set of mandatory requirements for performance, for social performance. There isn't a single new social regulation that can pass in the next 10 years that S-Factor doesn't already have a 10-year history on. We've always been ahead of the market, and it's because we've been working with the frameworks that are now moving from best practice to soft law and being ratified into hard law. Those frameworks and those criteria have been around since the 60s, and it's something we've been using to audit around the world for decades. So it's really obvious as to what's next. So we knew about modern slavery. We knew about supply chain disclosure. We knew about, years ago. And so we were collecting information external to company in places where they operate to help us inform those behaviors and or externalities that would affect companies' ability to operate, which would disrupt operations and therefore kind of impose lost time costs to the business. That is criteria that is really relevant to investors. They want to know about supply chains being crippled before they read about it in the news, right? We don't want to have to rely on controversies after they happen. We'd like to model and predict the probabilities of those disruptions with these signals early on. So we built a proprietary algorithm which now synthesizes this data, correlates it to a proprietary scoring rhetoric. So moving beyond traditional policy checkbox exercises, reliant on what companies tell us they're doing, more into monitoring the behaviors and the outcomes of social management systems on a daily basis. So we are really, if you think about what hedge funds use, they use credit card transaction data to model the probability of where the market's going to move next. And they take that kind of predictive nature of large language models to determine where their investments will go. Similarly with flight patterns, what airlines are moving, which airports are the busiest, like large volumes of structured data to inform their decisions and model probability of tomorrow. So we're doing that with social risk data. This produces the rating system. The rating system then correlates to signals of the quantitative system, which we've built with Index One, and we've partnered with a couple of other quant firms to all test this. We're saying this is what we think we have. What do you think we have? And we're relying on the expertise of Index One and the tools that are out there in quantitative AI to learn about the signals that this large language model is telling us. So I think I'll pass that to you, Alex, to explain how then you take those ratings and model it to the quantitative correlations and what you see from your side.
Yeah, thanks. I can tell you're very passionate about this topic and what you've built. But yeah, from my perspective as a consumer and user of this data set, it's very impressive set. Like for sure, there's coverage is extremely broad, and the different verticals you have like quite a good amount of granularity for different aspects of what you're measuring here, sort of the S factor. And so we've really enjoyed working with that data set and putting these indices or strategies together. And I think you alluded to in the beginning, we've built a series of best-in-class indices. So we've taken for different verticals in the data set, as well as a aggregate score, taking the top companies, built an index series, equally weighted, and with a fairly long backtest history, several years long, and we've been running them live for a fair amount of time now. And performance-wise, it does appear that these factors seem to hold up both in the backtested and the live environment compared to comparable benchmarks. But given the depth of the data set, I think we've only kind of really scratched the surface in terms of what's possible to build out of this. This initial series is a fairly simple implementation, but there's definitely more sort of interesting exposures to be found there, and alpha generation opportunities. And for anyone who's interested in using these indices or anything kind of derived from them, we're obviously happy to work on that. And in terms of next steps, where do you sort of see this going with these indices? Where do you think? What are your goals in terms of launching, monetizing, getting usage for these products?
Yeah, so I mean, we've really enjoyed working with you. It's very exciting to learn about the significant alpha that is surfacing between our two scientific models. The products we built with Index One and other backtesting with AI have all produced significant alpha. We've accidentally built a suite of products trying to produce the business cases for clients. And so these signals identify social operational risk, typically 1 to 3 months ahead of market outcomes. So therefore, we've decided actually to convert our data and our ratings and this index suite into our own fund. The jury is out right now as to whether this fund is best suited as a long only active thematic ETF series with the indexes, or an arbitrage type hedge fund with pairs trading, right? So mostly long with shorts on outlier events with that predictive signal of disruption. We're hoping to share more in a couple of months as the strategy develops. It will ultimately rely on who our partners become and what their mandate and strategies are. It works both ways. I don't understand why we can't have both, but I'm sure there's some rules against that. So, now I have to learn the investment strategy process. So obviously we will partner with the talent to do that. There's lots of options out there for us, but we are actively seeking seed capital for this fund or this fund series. So certainly if there's any interest to partner or white label the possibilities, we are open and listening. We are meeting with potential partners as to what strategies we could actually launch. I do see us bringing this to Europe. Primarily because it's a very active market and social regulations have passed, making it timely and relevant. We currently are based in Canada, but we have clients throughout Europe and in New York as well, and other locations in the United States. So obviously those would be the two primary targets. But because I just don't think some jurisdictions are ready for social, and if we can remove the stigma of social around the products and look at the performance and a relevancy of that performance and the outcomes, then I do think that we can contribute to a change of behaviors and a change of performance. So,
yeah, very very interesting topic, like I said, and I think there's some interesting stuff coming around the corner, and so I really wish for the success of this product, and like I said, very excited to have launched this and bring it to market with you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to work with you, honestly. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions around how the index works or S-Factor in general, you can get in touch with us at indexone.io. And Bonnie, I think you have some website you can share as well.
Yes, it's thesfactor.co.
All right. Well, thanks, Bonnie, for your time, and look forward to speaking with you soon again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.